There we find a clearly annoyed senior laying into Lisa. He's furious because she should have stayed undercover, and he's worried about how he's going to explain the situation to his own superior, who will be calling him soon. Lisa quickly apologizes, saying it's all her fault. She admits she misjudged the situation, and as well as our boy's preferences and his strengths. She then puffs out her chest and requests another chance to make things right, promising to deliver positive results this time. But the senior tells her that it's not so easy to get a hold of Zhou Wen now. He instructs her to check out some documents, hinting that the situation is more complicated than she realizes. The girl is curious and a bit confused about the documents. The senior explains that he had his teacher dig into the secrets of Ouyanglan and the Ang family, and everything is laid out in those files. When Lisa opens the file, she's stunned to find that our boy has actually been enrolled in Sunset College ahead of time. What really gets her is that this place used to belong to Ang Jin, so it makes no sense how could the Ang family give it to Zhou Wen, who's just an outsider. By the way, if you are curious about what place we are talking about, it's about something called God-bestowed gift, and the Ang family has chosen Zhou Wen to receive this thing called God-bestowed gift. I can't deliver any more spoilers, so keep yourself strapped and watch. The senior reassures her that although it sounds crazy, his teacher's intel is solid. He explains that the Ang family used their only chance to switch the candidate to our boy. He's amazed at how everything, from the notorious Jing Deoxian to the Ang family, seems to be pointing to Zhou Wen, making things more and more tangled. Meanwhile, our boy suddenly sneezes and wonders if he's catching a cold, but he doesn't realize that he has become the target of some trashy federal agency who is going to nag the hell out of him throughout the series. While holding his backpack, he looks pretty relieved to have finally made it into the prestigious Sunset College. He looks at the keycard his stepmom gave him. It says, Four Seasons Garden, which must be where his dorm room is. After finally reaching the building he's been looking for, he climbs the stairs, swipes his keycard, and steps into his room. Honestly, it looks more like a 5-star hotel suite than a dorm room where, let's be real, most students live for the chance to indulge in anime and junk food. In any case, this marks the beginning of his new life at college. When he opens his backpack, he realizes he didn't pack nearly enough for this new chapter of life, just some clothes and not much else. So, he decides it's time for a shopping trip. He pulls out the campus map and starts looking for shops. As he's checking his phone, a girl starts descending the stairs. He looks up and sees Ang Jing. He's surprised to see her and asks if she lives upstairs. The girl seems a bit shocked but doesn't bother to respond. She just pouts and walks away, ignoring him completely. As she descends, our boy has no clue why she's so angry, but he decides not to dig into it and pretends he didn't see her. Once outside the dormitories, he checks his phone again and finds it odd that the shops he expected to be there aren't. He wonders if he might have taken a wrong turn. The street is completely empty with no one around to ask for directions. Suddenly, he hears an unexpected meow. He looks around and realizes someone is playing with a cat. He quickly follows the sound and notices that the male voice playing with the kitten sounds familiar. It's no surprise the voice is familiar, as the person playing with the cats is Gudian, the same guy who lost to our boy in a punch bet. It's surprising to see this fella, who was supposed to be the most terrifying guy, getting all cozy with these little creatures. Well, this comes as a great shock to our boy, who never imagined seeing this guy playing with kittens. He musters up the courage and calls out to Gudian, but a sudden silence falls over the area. Gudian quickly releases the kittens and transforms back into his usual terrifying self. He warns our boy that if he tells anyone about this, he's in serious trouble. With anger bulging in his eyes, he gives Joe a fierce look, and our poor guy, feeling the heat, quickly says he didn't see anything and was just looking around for shops. He adds that if Gudian can point him in the right direction, he'll leave immediately. Baldy appears to be pleased by our boy's response, so he retracts his hand back. Just as he's walking away, he tells our boy Hat this is the old campus. He advises him to walk along this road, where he'll eventually find the guards who can show him the way. Gudian stops for a moment, shoots one last glare with his bloodshot eyes, and warns our boy to leave the kittens alone as well. With that, he turns and walks away. Our guy stays behind, gently patting the cute kittens. He reflects on how, after the dimensional storm, humans can now form contracts with creatures from other universes, which are more obedient and possess magical powers. Most people no longer care about weak, local pets, so it's surprising to see someone as tough and intimidating as Gudian having a soft spot for these little creatures. Once he's back in the dormitories, our guy feels like he's on a losing streak. He's pretty annoyed that he keeps getting his butt handed to him in the game for no apparent reason. He pinches his thumb to draw more blood, and his avatar reappears in the game, once again standing on the same stairs where he keeps dying after getting his innards twisted. There's some mysterious force between him and the small Buddhist temple that seems to kill anyone who dares to step forward. He finds it odd that despite several attempts to approach the temple, he's met with instant death every time, even when he tries to fly without touching the ground. No matter what he does, he's killed as soon as he enters this area, and he's tried everything he can think of. But he does not seem to cross these stairs. Since it's a game, there should be a limit, no matter how difficult things get. Even though the Skeleton Knight and mosquitoes were very strong, he was able to figure out how to defeat them eventually. However, this time he's getting killed without any warnings. It's no longer a boss fight. It feels more like facing a sealed door he can't enter without the key. If he wants to access the small Buddhist temple, he needs to find the corresponding key. But in Buddha City, he can only explore the Lotus Pond right now, and there's nothing there. Reflecting on the meditation skill he acquired, he decides to give it a try. The skill which he got in Buddha City doesn't improve attack speed or defenses, and it consumes chi to maintain the state. With his meditation skill activated, he starts descending the stairs again. As soon as he reaches the bottom, he jumps over the ground, and this time he survives. The sight of surviving the jump leaves him overjoyed, and he proudly strides into the small Buddhist temple, thrilled that he can now explore it. Or so he thought. Activating the meditation skill is consuming a massive amount of Kai, and he's about to get screwed over. Eventually, he dies again, but summons his blood avatar back, only to be thwarted once more as his Kawai drains at lightning speed. He frustratingly pinches his thumb to draw blood and summons his avatar again. This time, he runs like a maniac, determined to rush through the chi draining area as fast as possible, but before he can reach the other side, his ki bar depletes again. Not giving up, he pinches his finger, letting a drop of blood fall. He reflects on how his speed isn't quite fast enough to get him through to the small Buddhist temple, so he starts to consider using the mosquito instead. He is feeling pretty smug after activating the wings, and he is pretty sure that he's finally going to make it. But then, just as quickly, his smugness evaporates as his chi depletes even faster. Sure, the wings increase his speed, but they also drain his chi at a ridiculous rate, especially when combined with the meditation skill. He grudgingly finally admits that it's impossible to get through this area with just a rank 7 meditation skill. The only option left is to use skills at higher ranks. He decides that maybe he should explore the Lotus Pond again, hoping to find something useful. Just as he's about to set off, his phone rings. When he picks it up, it's Li Xuan on the other end. Zhou Wen casually tells him to come to the Lotus Pond and watch the show. Chu gets curious to hear this and asks what's so interesting about it. Zhuan just looks straight ahead, where we see our boy's stepsister is standing against a gorilla-like guy and cryptically tells him that he'll understand when he gets there. As she stands there, murmurs ripple through the crowd. People are saying that she had already reached a legendary level before she even enrolled, and the guy standing against her is Yang Liu, a 3rd-level legendary figure. Apparently, this gorilla claimed he would kill the Buddha Heart Lotus as a gift for her. She glances at the flower, and with her usual swagger, tells him not to waste his breath on something as mundane as flowers. She's confident that he's just all bark and no bite, and couldn't possibly defeat the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus. Her remark infuriates Yang Liu, who feels humiliated by her dismissal. On the other hand, Zhuan is impressed to learn that the flower's actual name is the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus, which confirms that she has thoroughly investigated the monster. We then also see this lackey, Miantu, from earlier chapters. He points out that Yang Liu is trying to impress the Ang family, which is why he's putting on this show. Zhuan points out that while the Ang family is famous, they are nothing compared to the Ang family. Heck, even the Yang family's business relies on the Ang family, and Ang Jing would never be interested in someone like Yang Liu. The lackey agrees, adding that the only person truly worthy of her is Li Xuan himself. But the boss quickly shuts his lackey down, saying he's not interested in Ang Jing at all. After all, he's not the type to clap cheeks of his friend's sister, and that friend, of course, is our boy. When our boy finally strolls into the scene, he looks at his stepsister and asks Zhuan if he really called him here just to show off his sister. The playboy just smirks and says that's not the main event. He points out that his sister has an admirer, and as her brother, it's his right to check out the man who's fallen head over heels for her. Meanwhile, Yang Liu is seething with anger after the humiliating rejection from our stepsister. He's confident that once he takes down the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus, he'll make her swallow her words and accept his gift. But the girl dismisses his promise as pointless and tells him to stop humiliating himself. That's the last straw for Yang Liu. He summons his pets, and 2 white eagle-like birds appear in the sky. Miantu is awestruck to see these legendary-level silver-eyed eagles, and there are 2 of them, no less. The cocky Yang Liu barks orders to his pets, and they quickly zoom towards the lotus flower. The lotus flower does not sit idly either, and fires a red laser again, smashing directly into one of the eagles. Yang Liu just laughs it off, saying that such puny tricks can't hold back his pets. As those eagles disperse that red blood laser attack, they strike back at the flower, which leaves Miantu awestruck once again. He is blown away by the fact that those feathers are immune to blood erosion. I guess it's no wonder they're at the legendary level. By now, he is pretty sure that Buddha Heart Lotus might actually be at risk of being plucked out after all. But just then, our boy throws in his 2 cents, saying that it's not going to be that simple and that the battle is far from over. As the eagles continue to scratch at the formidable petals, the lotus flower begins to awaken. The petals unfurl, and the eagles quickly retreat. The flower gives the pesky monsters a cold, menacing look, sending a chill down Yang Lu's spine. Seems like it's clear to him that he's bitten off more than he can chew. Zhou Wen explains that, in theory, most of the lotus creatures are weak, but this one is a completely different species. However, it seems this cocky gorilla isn't ready to back down without a fight. He quickly turns his eagles into fiery beasts which are resembling the reincarnation of phoenixes. With their fiery forms, they charge at the lotus flower at lightning speed, deploying their golden claw ability. But the flower quickly hides behind a red, crimson shield, stopping the phoenixes before they can deliver any devastating damage. The gorilla is stunned to see that the flower even has a defensive key fighting skill, but that is when he also realizes that the blood shield only defends against attacks directly around it, so he decides to keep the flower occupied with his phoenixes while he sends another phoenix eagle to attack from above, where the flower is unguarded. Our boy quickly realizes that the gorilla is about to attack from above, and as a and this triggers a memory of his past game experience, where the monster devoured him from above. He screams that it's a literal trap, but before the gorilla can make sense of what he's saying, his eagle has already reached the mouth of the lotus. The monster's giant mouth, lined with sharp teeth, opens wide, and in a split second, one of the fiery eagles is gulped down in a single chomp. The flower lets out a satisfying burp after having a roasted bird for dinner. The onlookers are stunned to see this horrifying sight, and Yang Lu just lost one of his precious eagles in one fell swoop. Even Yang is baffled by what just happened. He quickly recalls his last remaining familiar, and all he can do now is grit his teeth in frustration. That's when the guy starts strutting toward our boy, towering over him like a big shot. With his usual swagger, he asks how in the world our boy knew it was a trap. Well, Zhou can't exactly spill the beans that he's already battled this beast in the game, but thankfully Miantu jumps in and says, of course Zhou knew it was a trap. After all, he is ranked second in the real combat test of Guida province. The gorilla just laughs it off, and Miantu just doesn't let it slide, so he asks this cocky guy, what's so funny, huh? Don't you feel even a little regret for losing your silver-eyed eagle? If it were me, I'd have dug a grave and crawled into it out of sheer embarrassment. Yang Lu gets pretty ticked off and demands to see how the guy ranked second is going to take down the lotus. Miantu confidently responds that Zhou can handle it with ease, and it's going to be a piece of cake for him, unlike Yang Lu, who's just made a fool of himself in front of everyone. Meanwhile, our guy stays silent, as he is not sure what to say. That's when his stepsister comes rushing in. She gets right up in his face and asks if he can actually take down the blood-striped Buddha heart lotus. Once again, our boy isn't sure what to say. As much as he hates to admit it, he hasn't actually defeated the blood-striped Buddha in the game, and the lotus here is showing off some moves that didn't appear in the game either. But with her sharp gaze boring into him, and he doesn't want to look like a coward by admitting he can't handle it, so he just clenches his fists in frustration. Meanwhile, the gorilla starts chuckling and points out how Zhou looks pretty scared, saying that talking is the only thing he seems good at. That's when Lixuan chimes in, and he expresses his desire to join our boy to defeat this monster. The gorilla is pretty startled by this unexpected development because he didn't expect the famous playboy of the Li family to get involved. But then he starts grinning, thinking that even the silver-eyed eagles couldn't handle this, so they're just daydreaming if they think they can take down the monster. With that, the gorilla agrees, and says he's looking forward to seeing their plan in action. A little while later, the crowd is gathered on one side, while our boy and his two allies are on the other side. Lixuan is visibly pissed that Miantu provoked the gorilla and dragged them into this challenge, but our boy reminds him that pinching this dude's cheeks isn't going to help now, because they have already accepted the challenge, so they better focus on their next plan. Zhu is pretty confident, even though his blood avatar wasn't enough to take down the monster before. He's sure that with all three of them working together, the outcome might surprise everyone, especially since Lixuan has two legendary level creatures on his side, giving them a better shot at victory. The only hitch is figuring out how to get into the lotus pond. Zhou admits he can't rely on his skeleton ant alone, and can't protect all three of them during the fight. Zhou also points out that he doesn't have any flying creatures, and his new sky conch can barely manage to stay airborne. That's when Miantu steps up, placing a mask over his face and saying, "Leave this to me." He summons his pet, and suddenly a giant turtle pops out of the sky, plummeting into the acidic water. As it floats there, it creates a solid platform on its shell, giving them a way to stand above the acid. Lixuan is pretty fascinated to see that even Miantu has a mortal-level symbiotic egg. At first, he thought only Zhou had pets of that caliber. Anyway, the three of them ride atop the giant turtle and head towards the flower. Miantu tells his friends that they should go fight the twisted flower, while he commands his dragon-scale turtle to support them from the sidelines. With that, both Zhou and his friends start unleashing their pet powers. Then, my guy jumps into the sky, summons his skeleton ant, and hops onto its back. Zhou doesn't waste any time showing off either, and quickly begins to transform, leaving the crowd going absolutely wild when they see that even the notorious third son of the Li family has a legendary level creature. Our playboy proudly dons his dark armor and gets ready to dive into the hack and slash action. Meanwhile, the cocky gorilla is fuming, seeing that these three might actually defeat the monster after all, thanks to their powerful pets. His stepsister watches intently, not missing a moment. It looks like our armored playboy is struggling to keep his balance on his conch, so Zhou tells Miantu to keep an eye on Zhou since the floating ability of the conch isn't very flexible. They gotta make sure their friend does not fall into the acid. Miantu nods and says, "Leave it to me." With that, both of our boys charge at the monster. The Buddha quickly shoots out crimson projectiles at the party, but Zhou tells his aunt to block them. The skeleton ant promptly rises up and takes the crimson projectiles head on, protecting them from the attack. That's when the black armored guy spots his chance and slashes his sword at the monster. The flower retaliates with its crimson, fluid-like attack again, but Zhou's slash cuts straight through that crimson stuff and hits the flower right in the face. Meanwhile, Zhou's ant lets out a powerful roar, and spikes begin to emerge from the curb, slamming directly into the flower's body, but this flowery jerk remains totally unfazed. It quickly pulls out its crimson stuff again and obliterates those spikes like they're nothing but cucumbers. Seeing the old trick, Zhou wonders if the flower is trying to lure them into attacking from above, but then the playboy jumps in, saying they don't need to do that because he's confident they can take this monster down from the front. He charges his sword and starts vanishing into thin air. Meanwhile, the monster isn't just sitting around. It lets out a massive roar and a tornado-like force starts swirling in its mouth. The heavy air pressure makes it tough for our boy to get close, but the armored guy holds his ground. Once he's done charging up his sword, he comes crashing down on the monster like a goddamn meteor, and that single attack obliterates the lotus flower from the inside. Just as the petals of the flower start burning down, a frog sitting inside it spits out some weird stuff from its mouth. It's headed straight for our playboy, who's totally exhausted after his big attack and is just falling like a sitting duck. But before it can hit, we hear our hero unleash his power punch. Flames erupt, completely obliterating that dark stuff. Zhou threw his punch from a distance, and the remnants of the dark energy shattered the conch Xuan was riding. Zhou quickly tells Miantu to catch Li Xuan while he takes care of the stinky toad. The lackey quickly agrees, and our boy darts forward, leaping off his skeleton ant with his punch charged up with fiery energy. The toad spits out more of its gooey stuff, but our boy easily sidesteps it like it's nothing. By now, the toad is pretty sure that he is screwed, so it braces itself for the impact. Zhou's massive explosion takes it down, and when the flames finally settle, there's nothing left of the toad other than the splatter of blood. Suddenly, Zhou notices that Xuan is about to fall into the acidic water of the pool. The playboy is convinced that Miantu is intentionally letting him fall, and it's pretty clear when Miantu smugly says Xuan deserves to fall inside this acid. Meanwhile, the stepsister is ready to step in if things get messy. But before she can, my guy swoops in and grabs his friend just in time, preventing him from hitting the acid. Playboy feels pretty embarrassed that Zhou had to save him once again. Once they land on the turtle's dragon scale shell, Miantu starts yelling at Zhou, accusing him of hiding another symbiotic pet. But our boy just sighs in disappointment, reminding Miantu that he only had one job, and he failed miserably. That's when Xuan gives Miantu a solid smack to the face, telling him he's a terrible actor. The slap sends Miantu tumbling, and he asks why he was betrayed. That single slap has messed up this bastard's face, and he explains that our playboy can't defeat his brother Li Mobai because Mobai has already bought off everyone around here. But then Miantu pulls another sneaky move and shatters the dragon crystal that Zhou and Xuan are standing on. He makes it clear that if he can't take down the playboy alone, he'll gladly drag everyone down with him into the acid. As the rubble starts sinking into the acid, things look grim for both of our boys. But just in time, they're saved by a mysterious blob that encapsulates them before they can fall. And who's behind this rescue? Well, none other than Zhou's stepsister. The next scene takes us to the investigation office at Sunset College. There, both boys are grilled by the officer. And after taking in all the info, the officer tells them to just leave. Once they're outside, Li Xuan is feeling utterly disheartened, wondering why everyone seems to be gunning for him. That is when our boy asks him why his brother has such a vendetta against him, and why he's going to such great lengths to kill him. Li Xuan explains that he and his brother, Li Mobai, have been almost estranged since their eldest brother passed away. While Mobai is busy running the family business with their father, he himself been living the easy life. Zhou's curious why Mobai is so set on taking him down, if it's not about power or wealth. Zhou says it's not about anything so trivial. Our boy presses for more details, and Zhou suggests they find a private spot to chat. There might be spies around. A while later, we see a bunch of cola cans scattered around, and it looks like they're back in Zhou's dorm. And our boy is not too thrilled to see his friend littering all over in his room. Wayne kicks off the conversation by asking if Zhou knows the difference between creatures of different levels. He explains that they're categorized into mortal, legendary, epic, and mythical, and the higher the level, the bigger the gap. Eventually, the power gap becomes so huge between the mortal and mythical class that the mortal class is like ants compared to the mythical creatures. So, with that in mind, he asks his friend how the humans, who are in the mortal class, killed the very first mythic class creatures despite this huge power difference. Zhou cuts to the chase, pointing out that all this is well documented in the books. He explains that after 3 days and nights, the original 6 epic heroes of the Federation managed to kill it. But Guo dismisses this as hot air, reminding Zhou that even with the biggest strength gap, 100 epic heroes wouldn't have made it, let alone 6. The real reason the mythical creatures were defeated was because humans had mythical symbiotic creatures on their side. Chu is shocked to his core and can't make sense of it. He questions how they could obtain mythical symbiotic pets before even killing the mythical creatures, since typically the eggs can only be hatched after the creatures are defeated. Leto explains that this is a god-bestowed gift. He reveals that someone bestowed the power to kill mythical creatures onto the 6 heroes, and that power was in the form of a larva of the mythical creature. Zhou dismisses the idea as a bunch of groundless legends, but Zhuang explains that the Federation has set up a top-secret department to handle and hide the deeds of the 6 heroes, and most people aren't aware of it. He further explains that his department is responsible for selecting specific individuals to receive the god-bestowed gift, just like the 6 heroes did. Zhou starts to seriously consider if this god-bestowed thing might actually be true, though he's unsure why Li Xuan is sharing this information with him. But then everything starts to click in Zhou's mind. He asks if it's really true, and the Playboy proudly confirms it. He reveals that his father has appointed him as the first heir to receive the god-bestowed gift in his family, and the only way Li Mobai can claim the qualification rights is if he kills Li Xuan. The next morning, we see the blue head sleeping soundly while Zhou is busy twiddling with his phone. He remembers the warning Xuan gave him last night about being careful because he's messed up Mobai's plans more than once by saving Xuan's life, and now Mobai might be gunning for him too. All these thoughts are fueling Zhou's drive to dive deeper into the game and get stronger. As he's totally hooked on playing, a system window pops up with a notification, which says that Silver-Winged Mosquito is really hungry. Zhou can't help but feel frustrated and mutters to the system, "Do you even know how much a symbiotic egg costs?" But at the end, he realizes that he has no choice but to feed it if he wants to grow his little buddy. The only way to acquire eggs is by taking down these monsters, who tremble in fear as they see Zhou approaching with his bloodshot eyes. In the college, a crowd of students gathers to watch footage from yesterday, where our boys took down the monster with impressive ease. The students are amazed by Li Xuan's legendary creatures, especially since they've heard he's only at the ordinary level. Zhou's performance as a supporting role also garners respect, and many think that if their third teammate hadn't betrayed them, they could have destroyed the core of the Lotus. Girls are buzzing about that fight as well, particularly captivated by how charming Li Xuan looked while fighting. They turn to Wei Yang, who is Li Xuan's sister by the way, and ask if she can bring her brother to meet them sometime. But it seems like Wei Yang is busy watching her own love interest, who is our boy, of course. She smiles as she sees him in action on the video, clearly enjoying the show. In the Federal Investigation Unit, the team's glued to the footage of Zhou Wen's battle. They're pretty blown away by how he dodged that poison toad's attack and landed a punch that took the creature out in one hit. Lisa chimes in, saying that Zhou Wen's physical skills alone can't explain that kind of move. She figures he's probably using a top-tier key spell. But, she adds, the records show he's been practicing bitter meditation, which isn't exactly cutting edge. The senior investigator agrees with Lisa's observations, but adds a layer of intrigue. He recounts that while he was in Guida province, he caught a brief glimpse of Zhou Wen's abilities. During that time, Zhou's skin had a slight jade luster, a sign that he was practicing bitter meditation. Now, that feature has completely disappeared, which suggests he may have abandoned the practice. Lisa asks if the senior suspects that our boy is not pursuing bitter meditation after years of dedication, and if so, who might have provided him with a higher level key spell, which forced him to abandon the bitter meditation. The senior pauses for a moment, then drops 2 names which pop up in his mind. The first one is the Ang family, and the second one is undoubtedly Jing Deoxian. Well, we all know that it's Jing Deoxian who gave our boy the chi technique known as the Lost Immortal Sutra. The old man can feel his own technique weakening, which only means our boy is awakening his own powers. Back at the headquarters, the senior explains that our boy met his stepmother, Wu Yang Lan, recently, and even if she had given him a new chi spell, there wouldn't have been enough time for him to master it. So if they rule out the Ang family, the only real suspect left is Jing Deoxian. The senior then orders Lisa to charge Zhou Wen with being an accomplice of Jing Deoxian, and to apply for a cross-district arrest warrant, because it's finally the time they interrogate our boy face to face. Lisa agrees immediately, and as soon as she pulls up the system window, she opens up Zhou Wen's entire profile. She's really looking forward to catching him and giving him a taste of what's coming. The woman then asks if the Ang family will protect our boy in college. The senior reassures her that as long as they get the warrant, they won't have any reason to protect him under federal law. Plus, since both Ang Tianju and Ang Jin have been messing with him, it's clear they don't want Zhou Wen to fight for the God-bestowed gift. Maybe they never really wanted to protect him in the first place. We then see our stepsister again, looking a bit hesitant before entering Zhou Wen's apartment. She stands there, reflecting on past memories. She recalls asking her mom why she chose our boy to be the candidate of the God-bestowed gift. She admits he's talented, but talent alone isn't enough to make him succeed. Besides, he's a gaming nerd, always glued to his phone whenever he gets a chance to play. But that's when her stunningly attractive mom, with a great figure and all, admits that she's already made her decision and would rather argue than change her mind. In the present moment, this is really irritating the girl. She's determined to prove to her mom that she's way better than him. She eventually decides to knock on the door. But before she can do much, Zhou opens it himself, still glued to his game. It takes him a moment to realize Ang Jin is standing on his doorstep. The arrogant stepsister then explains that her sun shooting spell is legit and that he can practice it however he wants. Zhou Wen is confused about what her deal is and whether she's just here to brag about her spell. In his mind, he thinks even if he wanted to practice it, he wouldn't be able to learn it since he already has the Lost Immortal Sutra. She then asks if he still doubts her. If he does, she tells him to show her the flash drive to their father, and he will surely verify it. Zhou Wen lets out a sigh at this and finally asks why she even gave him the spell in the first place. The girl replies that it was to prove she's better than him. She then asks if he wasn't upset when she defeated him in high school. Our boy flashes a charming smile and says not at all. In fact, he kind of admires her for it. This annoys her and she tries to remind him that she defeated him publicly, so it makes sense he'd want to bounce back and get revenge. She explains that she's seen his abilities at the Lotus Pond and believes he'll reach the legendary level after 3 months of practicing the sun shooting spell. She'll allow him to practice it, but until then, she plans to challenge him again. Our boy simply asks if he can give up now, admitting defeat. But this stubborn lady just gets even more annoyed and tells him he must fight her again. She's fuming at the top of her head, completely baffled by how her mother ended up choosing this guy. Eventually, she withdraws her hand and decides to head back to her dormitory. She offers Zhou some chi crystals as a prize, saying he's welcome to take any he wants since she won't be going easy on him this time. Zhou stands there in silence, reflecting on how she's a talented girl, recognized by the Federation, who reached legendary level at just 13. It doesn't make sense to him why she's so determined to fight him. Well, it seems like this idiot is clearly still in the dark about being chosen for the God-bestowed gift as the Ang family's candidate. Nonetheless, he grabs the garbage bags Li Xuan littered last night, takes out the trash, and returns to his game. He's still glued to the screen, and the action is intense. It looks like he's finally defeated the Lotus Buddha flower, and his ant skeleton has snagged the Buddha Heart Lotus egg. He quickly retrieves the egg from its pet, feeling anxious as he opens the Stats tab. Li Xuan had mentioned that the symbiotic heart of the Buddha Heart Lotus is very useful. Meanwhile, his silver-winged mosquito larva is starving and will soon disappear if it doesn't eat anything in time. He lets out a defeated sigh and decides to feed the little critter first. As soon as he presses the button, the larva begins to undergo evolution, bathed in bright, flashy lights. Zhou Wen anxiously hopes that his larva will get bigger, but in the end, he's disappointed to see that the larva remains just as small as before. He's already fed it 2 ordinary symbiotic eggs, but it's still a larva. He wonders if ordinary symbiotic eggs are less effective for legendary creatures. It's tough to get a legendary symbiotic egg, and it would still take him a lot of effort. Even if he fights Skeleton Knight over and over, the drop rate for legendary eggs is so low that it's going to take him forever to grab one. He leans back on his bed feeling defeated. He reflects on how he still has his sister to deal with, and if he doesn't reach the legendary level within 3 months, he's in serious trouble. He then remembers that thanks to the Lost Immortal Sutra, he can't even practice the sun shooting spell. He's still in the dark about how the sutra works and how he can advance further. As he beats himself up over his lousy luck, a knock on the door grabs his attention. When he opens it, he sees the familiar face of Gao Yang. Our boy asks what's up, and Gao Yang says he's here to apologize. This raises a red flag for Zhou, who is unsure of the real reason for the visit. Gao Yang continues his yammering, saying there will be no discord or conflict, and he wants to apologize for the past. He simply wants to forget their past grievances and extend his hand toward Zhou, taking the first step toward their friendship. Our boy accepts the gesture of friendship and proceeds to close the door, mentioning that he's in the middle of a game. But Gao Yang tells him to wait because there's actually one more thing he wants to say. He then takes our boy somewhere and introduces him to his friend Hai Feng, saying he's brought Zhou Wen here. Hai Feng, a newcomer, just smiles and thanks Gao Yang for bringing our boy here. Suddenly, Hai Feng moves with such incredible speed that our boy can barely see him. He appears in front of Zhou Wen in the form of a monstrous creature, but my guy remains cool as a cucumber and tells Haifeng that if he really wants to fight, they can just settle it in the arena, so there's no need to make a mess here. Haifeng then snaps his fingers and the dark red creature begins to disappear. He compliments our boy on how he remained unusually calm and sharp. As the dark form disappears, we see Haifeng has arrived with 2 of his lackeys. He begins by apologizing for his previous impertinence and introduces himself as Hu Haifeng. Without wasting any moment, he cuts to the chase and invites Zhou to join their team and help them take down the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus together. It seems like our boy probably didn't completely destroy the core of the flower last time, which is why the lotus is still around. Anyway, he asks why he's being chosen for this, and Haifeng explains that he studied the video of the battle between him and the Buddha Heart Lotus. While Li Xuan performed brilliantly, Haifeng found our boy's command and judgment even more intriguing. He points out that the academy has people stronger than Li Xuan. However, what made their last fight valuable was Zhou Wen's overall observation skills, and how he anticipated Li Xuan's position and dealt with the poison toad at the perfect moment. Haifeng goes on to say that if their third member hadn't betrayed them, Zhou would have won the fight. He further reassures our boy that he won't have to deal with the Lotus Pond mess again. All he needs to do is guide them and manage their symbiotic pets from the sidelines. Even with all the chatting and explaining, Zhou still turns them down. In his head, he's more focused on how to beat the boss in his game than on directing a bunch of cocky seniors. He's almost got the Lotus figured out and plans to tackle it himself eventually. Gaoyang tells him to think it over, because Haifeng and the other 2 seniors are at legendary level in the academy. Joining them could be a big win, and with their help, victory could come pretty quick. But our boy is not having it, and refuses again, which really gets on Gaoyang's nerves. He thinks to himself that if it weren't for Haifeng, he wouldn't have even talked to this annoying brat. Just then, Haifeng stops our boy and reminds him that he doesn't have to refuse so quickly. He asks him what he wants and assures him that they can arrange it if it's reasonable. Zhou Wen turns around, and he startles these both of thugs by saying he wants a legendary symbiotic egg. Gaoyang is furious at this bold demand coming from his junior. But despite Gao's irritation, our boy stands his ground and happily states that he'll join the team if they offer him a legendary symbiotic egg. Gaoyang is clearly annoyed, and he further gets cocky and grabs Zhou Wen by the collar. He tells him not to push his luck because his role in this partnership is minor. All he is doing is just directing the symbiotic pets, which doesn't warrant the legendary egg he's asking for. Zhou Wen tells Gaoyang to cool his jets. He makes it clear that it's entirely up to them. If they're willing to give him what he wants, then they're good. Otherwise, no hard feelings. Just then, Haifeng jumps into the scene and asks our boy if he has any specific requirements for the legendary symbiotic egg he wants. Zhou Wen shrugs, saying he doesn't have anything particular in mind. After all, he just wants a legendary egg to feed his pet, though he does not say it out loud. Haifeng then tosses an egg toward our boy and asks if that will be satisfactory. Well, Zhou Wen is clearly pleased with the offer and has no further demands, because getting a legendary symbiotic egg for free is more than enough for him. Haifeng extends his hand for a fist bump to seal the deal, and Zhou Wen quickly reciprocates, finalizing their agreement. As they part ways, Gaoyang turns to his friend and questions how he could give away the flaming toxic bee's symbiotic egg so easily. He doesn't understand why he trusts Zhou Wen so much. Haifeng reminds his friend that after watching the tarai in the video of the battle, he felt our boy had something special, which is almost as if he'd fought the Lotus before. Gaoyang is a bit shocked to hear this, but Haifeng just walks off, telling his friend not to stress. The egg is now just part of the deal, serving as insurance against their failure. Back in his room, our boy summons his winged mosquito. Once the little critter appears, he flashes the legendary symbiotic egg he snagged for dinner. Without wasting any time, he pops the egg right into his pet's mouth. Immediately, a giant blob of aura and fire surrounds the little guy as he begins to evolve. When the transformation is done, our winged mosquito emerges with sharp green eyes, a needle-like sting, and an overall bigger size, which is way bigger than it was before. Zhou finds it fascinating that this evolution merged the properties of the flaming toxic bee's attributes, probably because both are insects. He then checks the stats and notices that the larva tag is finally gone, and his mosquito has finally matured. But what really shocks him is how much the stats have improved, almost exceeding the limits of a legendary creature. On top of that, it's got a new skill called Magic Light Sting, which shoots a long, high-speed energy sting capable of piercing through targeted enemies. Zhou Wen can't help but flash a grin at his newly evolved pet. With its awesome upgrades, he's feeling pretty confident it can definitely take down the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus. He quickly drips some blood onto his screen, summoning his blood avatar along with his upgraded winged mosquito. Without wasting any time, he sends his mosquito charging at the Lotus. The Lotus isn't about to just sit there and take hits. It conjures up that crimson stuff and tries to blast the mosquito out of the air. But the mosquito zips through the attack with lightning speed, almost too fast to see. As the mosquito gets close, it's just a hair away from piercing the flower's eye with its sharp claw. But in a split second, the sneaky lotus ducks into the water, leaving the mosquito wondering where it went. Just then, the mosquito notices something coming up from below the ground. The lotus tries to catch it off guard by attacking from underneath, but the mosquito dodges the sneaky petals and makes a quick escape. The mosquito then turns his attention back to the flower and ramps up its descent momentum by using its silver wing attack, aiming directly at the flower. The lotus tries to block the attack with its crimson substance, but the mosquito isn't finished yet. With lightning speed, it circles back, slicing through the crimson barrier with its sharp wings. The lotus looks quite frustrated, and it finally explodes, revealing a toad inside, just like we saw in the real-life battle. And as expected, the toad quickly starts throwing gooey, sticky sludge at the mosquito, but the little guy dodges everything with ease. It quickly counters with its sting attack, sending a sharp crimson needle straight into the toad. The toad pops like a balloon as soon as the needle hits its target, and another sting from the mosquito obliterates the core of the lotus, causing a massive explosion in the aftermath. Just as the haze starts to clear, the mosquito makes sure to grab the crystal from the smoky explosion. Meanwhile, our boy watches with awe, still doubting if his winged mosquito's skill has truly become that powerful. His pet returns with the prize in its mouth and quickly spits out the demonic crystal of the lotus. Joe doesn't waste a moment and grabs up the red crystal. He is feeling pretty confident that the QI fighting skill of this blood-striped Buddha heart lotus might be the key to entering that small Buddhist temple. He absorbs the crystal, and this time the absorption process starts to affect him in real life as well. It feels like a searing heat trying to cook him alive, but Joe endures the pain like a champ. Moments later, the system announces that the demonic crystal of the blood-striped Buddha heart lotus has been absorbed, and his original skill, meditation, has been upgraded to a stronger skill known as blood meditation. Once the process is over, Zhou Wen's body is still emitting steam. He rinses his sweaty shirt, giving it a solid twist to wring out the water. After that, he activates his newly acquired blood meditation skill. As expected, the QE consumption rate with blood meditation is slower than with regular meditation, allowing it to last for about half an hour. He is now feeling pretty confident that this skill will help him explore the small Buddhist temple like a pro. Without wasting any time, he dives back into the game. He finally crosses the stairs of the underground Buddha city, making his way with renewed vigor, showing no signs of exhaustion. He's feeling happy that this enhanced meditation skills is helping him resist the power of this area. After a few minutes of running, he finally reaches the main entrance of the small Buddhist temple. He's feeling pretty nervous before going in, because he's not sure what kind of monsters he might run into. But he goes in anyway. After looking around for a bit, he's kind of weirded out that there aren't any dimensional creatures around. Then he spots a slab on the other side with some Chinese writing on it, and the title on the slab says it's a short sutra on perfect wisdom. That is when he recalls that the large sutra on perfect wisdom is a well-known thing. According to legend, a Buddhist discovered it during a dimensional storm, and it was ranked as one of the 2 greatest QE spell arts in Buddhism. He is sure that this short sutra on perfect wisdom must also be a spell too. As soon as he tries to read the inscription, the words on the slab start twisting and wrapping around, and he gets hit with a brutal headache. It feels like someone's trying to scramble his brain like eggs. He grabs his head in pain, and suddenly something starts shining brightly in the middle of his avatar's chest. In the next moment, the immense pressure he was feeling vanishes, and he notices that the flow velocity of the Immortal Sutra has slowed down. The pressure is gone, and he's no longer feeling any discomfort as he tries to read the inscription. Just as he's trying to make sense of everything around him, he quickly notices his ki bar is depleting. He hasn't even entered the Buddhist hall yet, so he starts running without wasting any time. Once he's standing outside the small Buddhist temple, he opens the door and spots a giant statue with 3 Buddha faces. He's not even sure if a 3-faced Buddha is a real thing in Buddhism, but as soon as he steps inside, his avatar starts to twist. And just like that, the game is over. He's dead again, without any warning or obvious reason. Looks like he'll need to dig deeper to figure out the rules before entering the temple. At least this experience taught him a bit about what those predecessors went through to gain their power. They really risked their lives, and he's starting to admire them for that. Even with the help of blood meditation, he still couldn't enter the Buddhist hall. But the fact that he didn't see any dimensional creatures suggests that getting into the temple must have something to do with that stone tablet. He's pretty sure that the tablet is some kind of chi spell. But since he has already practiced the Lost Immortal Sutra, he knows he can't practice another chi spell right now. Still, he decides to memorize the sutra written on it. Surprisingly, he's memorizing this script much better than the Lost Immortal Sutra. Once he's halfway through memorizing it, he decides to leave the small Buddhist temple's vicinity before his chi runs out. He plans to come back and finish reading it once his chi is replenished. He spends the entire day like this, yawning and grinding his ass away in the game. By the end of it, he's finally memorized the entire sutra. Suddenly, light starts radiating from him, and he's absolutely blown away by the new kind of chai circulating in his core. The only thing he can think is that this must be the short sutra on perfect wisdom he just memorized. He looks at his hand in his real life, and can also feel this new chi spell even though he hasn't practiced it. It's automatically circulating through his body according to his memory. He has no clue what's going on, but he's too exhausted to delve into these mysteries right now. So, he decides to hit the hay and will figure out what's happening once he wakes up. Just as he starts catching some Z's, mysterious patterns begin to pop up on his chiseled body. By the way, have you noticed that this lazy guy does nothing but game, yet he has one of the best bodies? It's a bit jealous-making. If I could get stronger just by writing manhwa recaps, I'd be the strongest person on the planet. Anyway, after his sleep, he heads to the bath in the morning. As the water pours over his body, he lets out a scream because his skin is shedding. He comes out of the bath, wondering if this is the effect of the short sutra on perfect wisdom circulating in his body. Regardless, he grabs his phone again and checks his stats. To his surprise, his old Lost Immortal Sutra key spell hasn't been replaced. Instead, his constitution has broken the 10 limit and improved to 11. Not only that, he can also feel the short sutra on perfect wisdom circulating through his body, but then he realizes something that completely blows his mind. Apparently, he can replace and circulate his newly acquired chai with the Lost Immortal Sutra. This means he's mastered 2 chi spells at once, which is a huge deal since most chi spells are very different in nature, and it's tough for a person to operate 2 simultaneously. The more advanced and complicated the chai spells, the harder they are to coexist. Just then, his phone starts ringing. It's Hai Feng, who reminds him that they have already reached the Lotus Pond to challenge the Lotus Flower and asks why he hasn't arrived yet. Looks like our guy got so caught up in grinding his game that he forgot he had a promise to fulfill. Shortly after, he makes it to the Lotus Pond, where we see that the party has already started attacking the core of the Lotus Flower. And our boy is the one who is calling all the shots, and with his flawless guidance, the team manages to obliterate the blob gahop of goo. Our boy quickly tells everyone to back off at least 20 meters. The beasts start stepping back, but that's when this cocky guy, who seems to be using his backside to think, insists that they should deliver the final deadly move now instead of retreating. This rowdy guy decides to take charge himself, and orders his flying beasts to launch their Bloodblade rain. The birds throw their feathers, which begin to demolish the area. A giant explosion rocks the entire area, and one bird gets caught in the explosion and gets burned to smithereens. The cocky guy is left silent after making this blunder. Our boy makes it clear that he won't be compensating for the loss of the bird, because the guy didn't listen to him. The cap guy apologizes and admits his mistake, saying there's no need for him to pay for it. Once the Lotus Flower is finally reduced to debris and dust, we see 2 teachers standing near the entrance of the tunnel. The blonde teacher feels quite jealous that someone like our boy will be her student. The woman with glasses comments that our boy gives the impression that he somehow knew the Buddha Heart Lotus would explode at the last moment. To defeat the Buddhism Heart Lotus in the military department of the Western District, 5 legendary creatures had to be sacrificed. This blonde then reminds her that since he has a relationship with the Ang family, it's safe to assume that he might have gotten the information from them. The lady responds that Ang Jing and her brother don't like Zhou very much, so they wouldn't just hand over information without a good reason. This makes her even more curious about him, and she wants to learn more. We're back in the game, inside the dungeon under the Lotus Pond. The toad has been activated and it's spitting out those black gooey balls. But our boy's winged mosquito is dodging them left and right and takes the toad out with a wing attack. To finish the job, the mosquito unleashes its magic light sting. Just like before, it erupts in a heavy explosion, and our guy is pretty chuffed to see that with his knowledge of the Lotus's attack patterns and the mosquito's abilities, he can take down the boss quite easily. Suddenly, his phone rings and he sees that there's a new loot drop, which is a symbiotic egg of the blood-striped Buddha Heart Lotus. He picks it up and learns that it's an alchemy-level egg with pretty good attributes. However, he also finds out that while the real Lotus knows several QE fighting skills, this one is too weak and only has 1 skill. Since there's a risk in hatching the egg, and he doesn't want to end up with a larva Buddha Heart Lotus, he considers fusing it instead. But the fusion rate is abysmal. That's when another system window grabs his attention, suggesting that he simply feed the egg to the silver-winged mosquito. Our boy remembers that the last time he fed his monster a legendary egg, it grew up, so he wonders if the same will happen again. With that in mind, he presses the feed button, but nothing particularly happens. It looks like he might have just wasted a legendary egg, and he's left with no clue about what exactly he needs to do to grow this critter. In the next scene, we see his avatar running towards the small Buddhist temple. As he nears the door, he quickly switches his QE spell to the Short Wisdom Sutra, and feels pretty chuffed to see that circulating the sutra is working perfectly. Once inside, he spots the Buddha statue again. Suddenly, something begins to drip from the statue and a magical enchantment starts to shimmer right under his blood avatar. He's worried he might have triggered another instant kill trap. To his surprise, nothing happens to him. Instead, a bunch of blobs starts to surround him. When he takes a closer look, he realizes they're actually symbiotic eggs. A system window pops up displaying some odd text. According to the postscript, the Buddha statue is one of the 5 kings of knowledge in Buddhism who have conquered the 3 worlds of desire, form, and formlessness, and he is offered an egg by the Buddha. Our boy finds it pretty strange that this statue is trying to give him free symbiotic eggs. When he tries to check the stats of the egg, the system window says that the attributes can't be accessed because they're unknown. So, he decides to pick one of the 3 eggs at random. As soon as he makes his choice, the system announces that the mythical creature hatching is confirmed. Our boy gets absolutely furious and throws his phone away because he never confirmed anything. It's not that he doesn't want a mythical creature. In fact, they're very powerful in the dimensional realm. The problem is that even legendary creatures nearly killed him during hatching, so he's dreading the pain that's about to come with a mythical creature. But since the hatching has already been confirmed, the arc of pain begins. This red-black substance starts to choke him, and he really doesn't want to be the first guy to die from playing games. A while later, we see him sprawled on the ground, looking like he's just gone through post-nut clarity after jacking off to some anime girls. He's pretty weirded out that he's still alive despite the mythical creature hatching. He can also feel that his blood and chi have drained from his body. I guess it was worth it though, since I highly doubt he would have gotten a fluffy and cute furball like this otherwise. The creature is named Deafening. He's confused at first because a mythical creature is supposed to be a powerhouse capable of destroying everything, but this little fella doesn't seem to fit that description. He picks up his phone and checks the creature's stats. Well, here's the bad news. The system mentions that this creature is an ordinary one at its primary stage. What shocks him most is that this ordinary creature has all attributes in the 2-digit range, which seems far from ordinary. It's hard to believe this could be considered ordinary at all. Still, he was told it was a mythical creature, and now he feels like he's been scammed by this crappy system. Nonetheless, he starts pondering the system's mention of the primary stage, and wonders if this monster can grow like the silver-winged mosquito. In myths, the white dog of Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha could hear everything in heaven and earth, and in Journey to the West, Deafening could differentiate the real Monkey King from the 6-eared macaque, while many other gods couldn't. This little creature, however, looks quite different from what he had expected. He then decides to check out the creature's symbiotic form. The little creature transforms into an ear-piercing ring. As soon as the effects of the ring are activated, he can feel and hear his surroundings more acutely. He can even hear people outside his dorm room. That's when he catches the voice of Jiang, who seems to be groaning intensely, making him suspect she might be having a blast with her middle fingers. He even feels like a pervert for eavesdropping on girls, and decides to tune out and refocus. Still, her groans are getting more intense, and she seems to be in real distress. He quickly reaches her dorm room and starts banging on the door, asking if she's okay. When he doesn't get a response, he starts to worry that something might have happened to her. Determined to rescue her, he takes a few steps back and charges at the door like a bull. However, he still can't get inside, because this is Zhang's room, and her security door is built like a tank. Meanwhile, Zhang, lying on the ground, is puzzled about how he can even hear her. She definitely doesn't want him to see her in the awful state she's in right now. Before he can actually tear through the door, Jiang quickly tells him to stop. The thumping at the door suddenly stops, but our guy, ever the champ, decides to jump through the window, leaving her completely boggled. As soon as he's inside, he asks if she's okay. Jiang is utterly embarrassed to see him and asks, "How on earth did you get in through the window?" Our clueless hero replies that he thought she was in danger because no one answered the door. He adds that he prefers calling a doctor if she's hurt. The girl quickly gets terrified and assures him she's been through this many times before and it'll be fine soon enough. That is when this idiot asks her outright if she's having her period. She glares at him like he's the dumbest person alive, throws down a mug over his face, and reluctantly confirms that yes, she's having her period. Then she drags him out of the room and slams the door shut. Looks like our guy completely misread the situation. Meanwhile, inside the room, she leans against the door, sliding down to the ground, feeling utterly embarrassed and blushing like crazy after the awkward encounter. The boy returns to his dorm room and starts preparing food, specifically choosing red dates to help him recover sooner. His phone begins buzzing, and when he picks it up, it's Xuan on the other end. The playboy informs him that the new semester starts today and that every club is looking for new members, so he suggests taking a stroll around campus to explore and get acquainted with others. However, the boy states that he's not interested in joining any clubs. Xuan responds that they could work together, and he's planning to start his own club. He even promises to help our boy with climbing up the ranks if he joins his club. But as we all know, my guy can easily climb the ranks just by playing video games, so he refuses and lets his friend know he's not interested. Xuan then tells him not to be so cold, reminding him that they need teams to complete most of the tasks assigned by the college. He points out that no one wanted to team up with them during the real combat test and asks if he wants to face that situation again. I guess our playboy got a point, so Joe eventually gives in and reminds his friend that the two of them alone aren't enough to start a club. Xuan just says they'll figure it out later. With that, the scene takes us to the outside, where the students start gathering in the central square of the college, and our boy feels overwhelmed by the crowd. Among the sea of people, Xuan is standing on the stairs, calling out to him, and he's accompanied by a lady. When they meet up, the playboy quickly asks why he's carrying a bag. Our boy explains he's got red dates and wolfberry tea to help replenish his blood. That's when the lady chimes in, suggesting that since he's already here, he should join Wei Yang's club. She adds that they have many lovely girls and would be happy to have him join. By the way, Wei Yang is Xuan's sister, which is exactly why Xuan protests, saying that our boy will be joining his club instead. He asks his sister if she's trying to lure him in with a bunch of beauties, making it clear that they're not falling for it. Despite his words, it's obvious from the way our playboy is drooling that he's definitely tempted. Our boy admits that he can't join Wei Yang's club, not because he's not interested in clapping some cheeks, but because he's already promised Xuan he'd join his club. Wei Yang's lovely sister gives up and says she's looking forward to cooperating with Xuan's club if the need arises. This pervert brother just gives a pleasant thumbs up to his sister, but our boy just stands there in silence. Once the ladies have left, Xuan jokes about how our boy let a group of lovely ladies slip away. Zhou tells him to stop joking and get serious, asking if Xuan isn't really committed to starting the new club. He warns that they need to start recruiting members quickly or all the freshmen will join other clubs soon. The playboy points out that there's nothing they can do because freshmen have to wait a month before they can apply to establish a club. They also need at least 5 members, and right now, they're not qualified to start a club yet. Annoyed, Zhou asks what the heck they're even doing here if they can't establish a club. Juan proudly replies that they're here to check out the girls, of course. This just irritates our boy even more. Realizing he missed out on joining a club with a group of girls just so he could help Xuan establish his club. But then, a familiar voice calls out to our boy. Hearing this, Zhou turns around, only to see 2 of his former friends standing before him. He wasn't expecting to run into them here, and he finds it rather fascinating that they all ended up at Sunset College again. Juan nearly jumps out of his skin when he sees a hottie in shorts and quickly asks our boy who this bombshell is. Shu introduces her as Feng Ruxi and mentions that they used to go to the same high school. The playboy then creeps over to Zhou and whispers, asking how he could have missed the chance to meet her back then if they were in the same school. But even if he missed the chance back then, Xuan is glad to meet someone like Ruxi now. He quickly invites her to join his club, asking if she'd be interested. To the playboy's surprise, Ruxi agrees right away. That's when this idiot remembers to tell her that they can only officially apply to start the club a month later, so she might have to wait a bit for things to happen. The girl agrees to wait for their club and then walks over to Zhou. She bows in front of him and apologizes, saying she's really sorry for leaving him out of the team during the college entrance exam, which might have caused him to miss his chance. Xuan watches with interest, wondering if she joined Sunset College just because of Zhou. On the other hand, Zhou forgives her, saying it wasn't entirely her fault. The blonde guy also awkwardly jumps in, saying they had no choice back then, but promises it won't happen again. The playboy then tells everyone to chill and skip the formalities since they're all buddies. He suggests it's getting late, so they should head back and get some rest to gear up for tomorrow's combat test. Chu is a bit surprised to hear this, and asks if they really have to dive into a combat test on their first day of college. He wonders if they're heading to Buddha City for it. Xuan clears it up, saying they're not going to Buddha City because this place is a newly discovered with tons of hidden dangers, and the college isn't about to let freshmen take those risks. Rushi then explains that, based on past years' experiences, the college usually picks one of the 4 stable dimensional realms for the test. You just need to kill a dimensional creature to pass, and the more you take down, the higher your score. Joe's pretty intrigued and asks how she knows so much. The girl casually points out that all the info is posted on the college's dimensional forum. Soon after they part ways, our guy takes a quiet stroll and explains that the dimensional forum was set up by the Federation to help and encourage people to share info about different dimensional realms. There's no need to use real info for registration, and both the military and the public can post whatever they want. He didn't pay much attention to it when he was at Guida High since they rarely dealt with complex dimensional areas. He never thought that everyone at Sunset College would actually use the forum to communicate. Now he's thinking it might be a good idea to learn the rules and start using the forum himself. As he's absorbed in his phone, someone calls out to him, asking if he's a special admitted student living in his building. Joe quickly looks around, trying to find the source of the voice, only to realize that the short girl is standing right in front of him. Seems like he failed to notice her because of his long-ass, giraffe-like neck. He greets her and introduces himself as Zhou Wen, mentioning that he lives on the 2nd floor. The girl, full of enthusiasm, introduces herself as Wang Lu. She's also a special admitted student, so he can just call her Lu. She mentions she lives on the 1st floor, and they're apparently neighbors now. But as soon as he sees her enthusiasm, he suddenly vanishes into thin air, leaving only the sound of a door closing. Looks like she stumbled upon a rather strange neighbor. Our guy puts away his bag, fires up his computer, and dives headfirst into the forums. He discovers that the forum is a massive information sharing platform accessible to everyone. The college and people from all walks of life regularly post or provide dimensional information through this site. He's totally blown away that such a huge platform doesn't require real name registration, and the Federation isn't worried about outlaws or enemies getting info from it. On top of that, there's a generous bonus system where you can trade all kinds of resources using dimensional points you earn from posting on the forum. He's amazed at how you can earn these points just by sharing information. The first way to earn dimensional points is through the clicks on regular posts, but this only nets you a few points even if thousands of people read your post. To rack up more points, you can post paid content. The content of these paid posts is unlimited, and writers can set their own prices. However, due to the anonymity of the dimensional forum, users are afraid of being scammed, so they tend to stick with paid content from well-known posters. Additionally, the Federation and the college also publish strategies for paid content, which only cost a few points. At first, our guy mulls over what kind of post to make, but it doesn't take him long to figure out his move, so he dives in and creates his first post. Meanwhile, we see a teacher is lounging on her bed, sipping tea and scrolling through the forums. She comes across all sorts of freshmen trying to impress the ladies. As she skims through the usual junk, she finally stumbles upon something intriguing. It doesn't take her long to realize that this is a strategy for the small Buddhist temple, priced at 20,000 dimensional points. Her jaw almost drops as she realizes how impossible this is. How could this person possibly know about the small Buddhist temple? The area around it has been set up as a forbidden zone, and relevant news has been blocked. Even most teachers don't know the temple's name. She suspects the post might be a scam, especially since the account is new. But still, if this post is genuine, it could seriously shake up how the military approaches their explorations. Out of sheer curiosity, the teacher spends 20,000 points and the information appears right before her eyes. She learns that consuming chai through the meditation of the Buddha Heart Lotus's dimensional crystal can resist the strange force in front of the temple which twists people's insides. The higher the crystal level, the longer the effect lasts. The teacher finds this quite odd, because no one is foolish enough to practice a basic Kai fighting skill, and even if you give this technique to people for free, no one would want to practice it. She wonders if she's been duped by this post. Meanwhile, our guy is grinding away in the game, again, battling the Skeleton Knight repeatedly. After taking down the Skeleton Knight a bunch of times, he finally scores a symbiotic egg as a loot drop. He quickly feeds it to his little critter, telling it to grow up and not just eat all the time. Seems like he is tired of farming the Skeleton Knight, so he decides it's time to explore deeper into the map. As he flies around the area, he's puzzled to find that there are no skeleton soldiers in sight, even though he has ventured much deeper. Then he spots something unusual on the ground, which is a massive tower from an ancient imperial city known as Yanbo Tower. This is a real surprise for him, and he wonders why Yanbo's tower is here. For some context, Yanbo was the son of Deku, one of the 5 emperors from prehistory, representing the fire god. The tower, known as the Fire God's stargazing place, is supposed to be located in the southwest, outside ancient Guida City. According to history books, it shouldn't be in the ancient city in the game at all. He's totally confused about why this iconic structure is here. Suddenly, he notices something flying over from the tower, and it quickly starts tracking him down. This thing seems like a fiery bird, and it swoops down at him with bullet speed. He immediately takes his stance and uses his Ash Palm ability, but the eagle-like fiery creature just pierces right through it. This encounter just leaves our boy totally blown away because it just felt like he just hit empty air, and the bird just zipped past him. And in the next moment, the fire of that bird roasts his avatar alive. He chugs down an energy shake, puts away the empty glass, and jumps back into the game, determined to defeat this new monster he's just run into. This time, he's flying using his winged mosquito symbiotic form. However, since the mosquito is the king of low altitude and extremely agile, he can't fly directly above the Yanbo Tower to see what's happening. What is making his situation terrible is this relentless monster, which is chasing him from behind, and he needs to find a way to shake it off first. He recalls the time when the Firebird turned to attack him earlier, and once the mosquito dodged away, the Firebird seemed to prioritize attacking whoever was standing near to the Yanbo Tower first. With this in mind, he decides to strategically use himself as bait to take down this fiery bird. Just as he reaches a certain height, he deactivates his symbiotic form and starts falling without its wings. That's when the fiery bird charges at him, but his winged mosquito quickly swoops in and takes down the fiery bird with a single strike. It seems like the mosquito's light sting works against the Firebird, even though his Ash Palm earlier couldn't hurt it at all. He's also curious why the system hasn't announced the beast's defeat yet. Regardless, he quickly starts ascending the stairs to check things out himself. But then he notices 2 more fiery birds coming his way, and he immediately tells his silver-winged mosquito to distract them. The mosquito charges at the fiery birds with its sharp agility, drawing their attention and clearing the path, just so our boy can ascend the stairs as quickly as possible. Well, it seems like his ascent isn't going to be as smooth as he thought, because the fire atop the tower starts reacting again, and this time, multiple fiery birds head his way. Instead of backing down, he goes full throttle. He leaps into the air and zips past the birds by using his ash palm to push himself through them. But just as he nears the top of the tower, he begins to see a word, written in Chinese beneath the scorching flames. Before he can make any sense of it, a giant explosion happens, knocking everything around him, and the game ends once again. The word he saw earlier meant Imperial in English, but he still has no clue what it means in this context. He's sure that this dungeon is supposed to be based on the real ancient Guida city, but in the game, it's called the Ancient Imperial City for some reason. He also notes that there was no killing notice by the system after he took down the Firebirds. He has a hunch that it might be because they were summoned by some kind of key fighting skill, and he's curious about what will happen if he faces the boss who summoned these monsters. He's sure there must be a lot of secrets in the Fire God Tower, but he doesn't have any way to explore them right now. While browsing the forums, he notices that he's scored 20,000 dimensional points twice. Earning money through the forum isn't as hard as he thought, but his moment of satisfaction is cut short when he receives a direct message, and the sender wants to discuss the small Buddhist temple. Meanwhile, on the other side of the screen, the sender is waiting impatiently for Zhou's response. Earlier, she had consulted her senior and shared everything about how meditation might help resist the mysterious power of the small Buddhist temple. Her senior agreed with her, saying they have tried meditation, and it indeed works. But they're both curious about who this unknown person is, who knows such specific knowledge about the short temple of Buddha. The senior then dropped a hint that there's a stone tablet in front of the temple with a Kai spell on it. Apparently, similar tablets are found in other realms too. Rumor has it that someone practiced the Chi spell and got some mysterious powers, but it's a bit more complex than that. There's something really weird about the short sutra on the tablet, which is located in front of the short temple of Buddha. The senior even mentioned that some volunteers tried to memorize the inscription, but unfortunately, they all ended up dying. The junior is stunned by this info, and her senior tells her that practicing the short sutra on perfect wisdom requires something special. He asks her to get more useful information from the poster who shared this knowledge. So, in the present moment, as she's anxiously waiting, Zhou finally responds to her. She quickly starts typing and asks if he knows the short sutra on perfect wisdom. Our boy confirms that he does, which only confirms her suspicions even more that this guy knows all about the small Buddhist temple. While Zhou waits for her reply, she responds by asking how he learned to practice the short sutra on perfect wisdom, and she's eager to offer a top price for this information. It turns out, Zhou has no clue how to practice the short sutra either. He remembers almost getting killed by the headache when he tried to read the inscription on the tablet, nearly losing consciousness. The only thing that eased his pain was the lost immortal sutra he'd already practiced. Well, it looks like he finally knows how he practiced the short sutra. So he quickly gets up from his seat and tells her he just can't help with this. With that, he closes the forum tab without saying another word. The next day arrives, and the students have started to gather in the college. We can also see Xuan greeting mornings with our boy, who looks completely exhausted and barely awake. Xuan gives him a little pep talk, telling him not to burn out by gaming all night. And it's true, our boy spent the entire night playing his favorite game, exploring deeper into the ant nest, but came up with no new leads. Even though the evolved silver-winged mosquito could fight and even take down those black mosquitoes, the ordinary level skeletons in Zhou's own life are always at risk. They're weak compared to the enemies and haven't scored any worthwhile loot. Once everyone settles down in class and walks the stunning beauty with black hair, causing all the perverted boys to drool over her. She cheerfully greets everyone and introduces herself as Wang Fie, which literally means king's concubine. As energetic as she might seem, there is no denying that her eyes are begging for some sleep, and she spent the whole night waiting for a reply from the mysterious man, who is our boy, of course. Meanwhile, our playboy, being his usual self, asks her if he can become the king of her life. The teacher agrees and explains that if he can pass her test and graduate successfully, he can become one. After a bit of playful banter, she gets down to business, informing everyone that the entrance test is to kill one demonized general in the Tiger Cage Pass within 10 days. They can team up with up to 3 other students for this task. She makes it clear that they must finish the task within 1.5 minutes, otherwise, they'll be expelled. The entire class lets out a collective scream, and some of them quickly remind her that they're still at the mortal level, and there's no way they can pull this off. But she calmly explains that as long as they take it seriously, 10 days will be more than enough. She announces that everyone will be allowed to enter the Tiger Cage Pass over the next 10 days, and hopes to see them all again after the test is over. Xuan looks just as confused and admits that taking down demonized generals in the Tiger Cage Pass seems like an unbelievable task. Seems like our clueless idiot does not even know what the hell these demonized generals are, so he asks how they are so hard to defeat. In response, Xuan explains that the Tiger Cage Pass used to be an ancient battlefield, so the creatures there are pretty powerful. Among legendary level creatures, demonized generals are above average. Some special demonized generals have even reached the top of the legendary level. Since most of the freshmen are still at mortal level, this test is incredibly tough for them. Zhou figures the best way to handle this is to take a closer look at the Tiger Cage Pass and see what's up. The next scene takes us to the teacher's office, where a male teacher is calling out to Wang Fie. He points out that using such a challenging test for special admitted students might not be a good thing, since they're just ordinary students. Wang Fie agrees and says she's already posted the details about the demonized generals on the Dimensional Forum. As long as the students are willing to study up, it's actually not that hard to complete the task. She clarifies that she's not trying to force anyone to drop out of school, she just wants them to stay humble and not get too arrogant or overconfident. After all, what they'll face in the future will be way more dangerous than this. We're back with our boys, who are staring down at the gate of Tiger Cage Pass. As soon as they enter, they find themselves in a desert where a bunch of weird sand-dweller-looking people are hanging around. Apparently, these are the demonized soldiers, and Juan isn't exactly thrilled to see them since they were hoping to find demonized generals. He then turns to his friend and suggests they should go deeper to see if they can find any demonized generals around. But our boy flatly refuses because he just wants to play it safe and avoid risking their lives. He points out that they don't know much about this place, and he can't be the one to save this playboy every time. Shane calls him a party pooper, and Zhou just starts walking away, saying he's going to look around on his own. As he strolls around, we learn that our boy is on the lookout for a dungeon to scan into his phone. He figures if he could find dungeons in underground Buddha City and ancient Guida City, then this place should have one too. His eyes land on a statue nearby, and as he squints his eyes to take a closer look, he spots the palm-like emblem he's been searching for. So without any further ado, he quickly pulls out his phone to scan it. A while later, other students have already started fighting the demonized soldiers, and Juan is watching from above, looking seriously disappointed. You see, our playboy can tell that these demonized soldiers are just weak sauce, and they are barely a threat at all. To him, it's pretty laughable, really, considering how cautious Zhou was about these pesky creatures. Speaking of Zhou, our boy comes back and tells his friend to let's get going. After hearing this, Juan turns around and agrees. But as soon as he sees his friend's unusually happy face, he feels a chill run down his spine. As they stroll out of the gate, Juan can't help but point out how unusually happy his friend seems. But Zhou just outwardly denies it, all while inwardly, he's over the moon because he's finally found a new dungeon to explore.
Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.